Hello everyone, Dice here. Today is going to be a simple rundown of programs for net running in Cyberpunk Red, which is really the third net running video we've done so far. No fluff, just an explanation as if I'm sitting right by you at your table. And if you're wanting a much more detailed breakdown, there are other better videos out there in my opinion. This is just to get you going. Now to let you know, if you're watching this after the Black Ice video, good call, because you'll have a bit of a handle on what is what. If not, don't worry, I'm going to explain this all without the need to watch one of the other two videos. I do recommend at least watching basic net running in a nutshell, but I'll cover everything as simply as I can. Going into programs as a netrunner, the best way to explain it outright is programs are your gear in the net. Now, I'm not talking about your cyber deck, that's a whole different topic. I mean, once you're in a net architecture, programs are what you're going to be attacking with, buffing yourself with, and protecting yourself with. I mean, they're literally called attackers, boosters, and defender programs. Now, this is just for basic programs, not Black Ice, which are considered programs too, for the record. The formula for attacking is simply your interface rank, plus the program's attack number, and then a D10. Defending comes down to the target's interface, if it has one, or what that program's defense number is, plus a D10. Highest roll wins, obviously. Each class of program have their own stats and effects, and each one will outline what they have in terms to add to your rolls like attack and defense. Programs also have their own HP, called res, which means yes, your programs can be knocked out in a way called de-resed. Most of the time, Black Ice will be what's doing this, and they'll be targeting the programs directly. You can have programs be outright destroyed too, such as by an ASP or killer Black Ice. If a program is destroyed, it's gone for good, and you're buying a new one. If it's de-resed, you can still reset it. It just takes you using a couple of net actions to deactivate and then reactivate. So, before you even go into the net, be sure you've got your programs you want loaded into your cyber deck and installed. If it's not installed, you're not using it in the net. Prep work will save you, and having a plan with what you have always will win out in the end. You can run more than one of the same program in your cyber deck, and yes, the effects stack unless it says otherwise. Once you get into the net, I highly recommend taking the time to activate the programs you intend to use. This way, once you're in, before you go in deeper, you're prepared and you're not going to get caught off guard. The only ones you don't have to do this for are attackers. They're just always ready to go, and when you use them, you use them. But when it comes to your boosters and defenders, take the moment to actually make sure everything's running. Now, I'm going to let you see here one from each class of program just so you know what to expect. The first one is, of course, an attacker, an anti-program one at that, and quite literally the most used program out there. This is Sword. So first thing is first, you'll see that it doesn't have defense or res, because it's an attacker program. Your enemy will very rarely be interacting with those numbers at all. It has an attack of 1, meaning you add a +1 to your roll when you use it, and peek at the effect here too, and you'll see what makes it so useful against programs themselves. This is a Black Ice killer, dealing 3d6 instead of 2d6 when you use it on one. It has a sister program too called Banhammer that does this in reverse if you're hitting a non-Black Ice program. Like Banhammer, there are other anti-personnel attackers too, and to show you a fun one, here's my personal favorite, Hellbolt. Remember Overheat from 2077? Pretty close to it, just 2045 and not magic technological spellcasting. So, same as Sword, it only sports an attack, and that's a +2 to your roll. The real nasty thing though is in its effect. It not only deals 2d6 damage directly to your target's brain, you outright set your target on fire in meat space. I'm sorry, but this is just a cool program, and I love it though even though there's stronger ones to mention. Much stronger, for the record. Remember, for attackers, you don't need to activate them at the start. Whenever you go to attack, that's when you activate them, and it uses them, and then they deactivate themselves right after. Your main requirement is just making sure they're installed in your cyber deck. When it comes to the programs though that you need to prepare in advance, I'm going to go ahead and start you off with a booster here, and that is Sia. I've mentioned multiple times how valuable the interface skill Pathfinder is, which is the way you can see what's ahead of you in the net. Sia, when activated, gives an additional +2 to those Pathfinder checks. Take a look here at the stat block though. See that 7? That's its res, as I mentioned, and if that drops to 0, its effect stops. And I hope that wasn't a killer that dropped it to 0. And yes, I keep bringing that specific Black Ice up because I want you to be afraid of it if you see that one. Don't treat it lightly, it'll ruin your whole plan and destroy your entire cyber deck. If your booster drops to 0 res, all you have to do is deactivate it and reactivate it, costing you 1 net action each. So you can get your bonus back, it'll just take a little time after you deal with whatever caused it to break down. Finally though, defending yourself with a defender can save you from that. Defenders require activation prior to working, but you have no idea how much they'll cover you. Armor here is a great basic example. And yes, as you see, it does pack 7 res too, but let's look at that effect. If you take any damage directly to your brain, it flat reduces it by 4 points. Simple, direct, and effective. Thing is though, is that it does have limitations. You can only run one at once, and if it's de-resed, it cannot be reactivated during this current net running session. You can get around this by jacking out and then jacking back in, but by doing that, you reset the entire architecture and start back over from square one, without gaining back the HP you may have lost while you were doing your previous netrun. The standard setup people will recommend to you as a beginning netrunner almost always includes 2 copies of sword. That's because when you attack, you only use 1 net action, and since you have 2 swords, you can use each. That's because a program can only be activated once per round, so having more than 1 sword makes sense. That goes the same for banhammers too, or any attacker program. Same with defenders. Usually boosters, though, are not stacked. A reason for this is cyberdecks have a limit on how much can be installed in them. They all actually have baseline slot numbers. You can't go wrong carrying at least 2 swords as a baseline, but don't forget some defenders. You'll not survive a single net run without some way of protecting yourself. Programs really do come down to just being the weapons and shields you wield in the net. I can't recommend enough having a little stockpile set aside in case you lose any, because you will definitely have some be destroyed. Cyberdecks can be upgraded with things that can prevent some of the nastier effects, like a backup drive can save destroyed programs. You'll find all of this stuff in the net running section of the book, not in weapons or cyberware. It all starts around page 202. If you want some extra reading, go take a look at Artalsorian Games' website, go to downloads, go to where they actually have a single PDF called Midnight with the Upload. There's some extra goodies in there for netrunners. Either way, I hope this outlines programs as best as possible to just jump into this. There's a netrunning example video coming up next with Z and myself to show you how this all comes together. For now though, that's all there is to it for netrunning. The next video should be covering vehicular combat after the netrunning example video. Take care everyone, and I hope you find yourselves a good table.